Hello. So I wanted to talk today about white people hoodoo. Oh no! Calm down. Calm down. It's not what you think. So hoodoo is dealing with the ancestors of slaves. Okay, so hoodoo you really don't want to mess with. But the thing is there's a white version of hoodoo. What's going on with my hair? Mostly the rich folk is who owned slaves. Edgar, get out. In the Appalachia, poor white folks freed slaves, and every now and then some Native American would come together. They didn't have the same qualms as the rich colonizer type white folks. And since they exchanged ideas, and primarily they exchanged healing techniques, a lot of the hoodoo side and the Protestant and Catholic poor folk that were over here, they did a type of their version of hoodoo, and it was termed powwow because I think it was the Algonquin tribe. Anybody can correct me on this. I don't have my books with me anyway, because powwow meant healing or something of close to that. And so they called it powwow. And so the white people adopted that term. The German word for it, I swear to God, I'm going to butcher this word. It's like Breckenchair, Breckichi whatever. I'm totally ruining the word, but I'll give you a screenshot of it. They had a different word for it, and it was powwow is way easier to say. We don't use the term powwow because it's disrespectful, and a lot of people don't know the history of how it got called powwow, and so they assume it was done in a bad way, but it wasn't. But still, we're respectful to the Native Americans. And so it became a combination of hoodoo practices and Breckenchair. I'm sort of saying that long, with a little dash of Native American healing practices. And all three of those were spiritualized. And so that's why it's for the politically incorrect term, it's called white hoodoo or white powwow or whatever. And you can still see that up in Pennsylvania. You see these giant paintings on the sides of barns and stuff. It's all related to that. So when somebody of not slave descent asks me if they can do hoodoo, you know, you're working with actual dead slave ancestors there. So it's different, like voodoo. You if spirit wants you, they'll seek you out and get you. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what color you are. But with hoodoo, a lot of the times you're working with the ancestors of the dead slaves, and they don't have good memories of white folks. So I always go, just steer away from there. Sometimes in people's private practice, they have been raised by black folk. They've been raised around Geechee Gullah and other indigenous Afro tribes, descendants, and it's very select white folks with the bloodlines that are taught voluntarily by someone of the hoodoo practice. It's really not something you want to walk into, and you don't have to, okay? Because the powwow and Appalachian folk magic is the non-slave version. So you don't have to interfere with hoodoo if you're not of slave descent, or you're not, a Native American or of Afro descendants. You don't have to. There's a whole other one that is very similar in the use of root work and conjure and using the Bible and stuff like that. If you are interested in hoodoo, and there are white folks that do conjure, but they got it from Native Americans and black folk, because that's who taught all Europeans that came over here. We didn't know how the roots and shit and the plants over here worked. If it has to do with the root of a native North American plant, we learned it from people of color, period. So a lot of that knowledge was passed on. So you don't have to do the hoodoo version. You don't have to interfere with that side of things. There's a whole side for everybody else that doesn't involve slave ancestors or dead slave spirits, elevated spirits of them. So it's just a matter of educating yourself. You don't have to do that. You can learn powwow or Appalachian magic. There's no distinct lines. Southern conjure is generally associated with people of color, but there's a white version over there. It's all the same. And the thing is you're not going to be messing with Edgar. Stop! Slave spirits. I mean, do you really want to? You're interested in hoodoo and root work. Edgar, if I have to call you one more motherfucking time, sit down. And yeah, here's some books for you.